I was recently scammed in an online purchase of aviation equipment, which, by the way, is a federal offense if you get caught doing this. How's it going, everybody? Mike here. Welcome back to the channel. This is a real life scenario. It just happened, and I thought about waiting to make this video because there's an investigation still going on regarding this matter. But I did want to make it, consider this a public announcement. I wanted to talk about it just in case anyone out there right now is shopping for an airplane or airplane equipment, whichever the case. So I'm going to start with the fact. I was recently scammed. True story. And I'm grateful that it wasn't a substantial or crazy amount of money or something bigger. But this did happen. So I'll give you the background of the story. Recently, we're looking to upgrade some of our equipment here with the airplanes, particularly this one of our trainers here I'm sitting in. This is a sport cruiser, already comes well equipped with glass avionics, but my preference for myself and our students is that we use the best of the best. And when it comes to instrument GPS, I've always loved the Garmin GTN, either the 175, the 375, or more particularly the GTN 650, which we have in the Sling TSI that I've flown for the last couple of years. And so the plan is to upgrade our equipment in this plane to a GTN 650, which also this plane is certified for. By the way, if you're upgrading an equipment in a certified airplane, it has to be one that the manufacturer says it's okay to use. If you're in the experimental world, you can put just about anything in your airplane. So for this particular plane, a sport cruiser, we could only go with the GTN 650. Some sport cruisers maybe have the 175. When we spoke to the manufacturer, they said 650 is the equipment that we have to use. So we started shopping around. If you're buying this thing brand new, there's a bunch of Garmin dealers all around the country. I think the average price is like 12 or 15 grand. And then when you calculate how much it will cost to install, some shops can charge you as much as $20,000-$30,000 to upgrade your avionics. Now, since we have our own mechanics here and avionics folks, our goal is just to get the equipment and have it installed here in the hangar. So we started shopping. We shopped through a dealer, and then we also shopped. We were looking in the used market, which makes all the sense in the world if we can get something that's fairly used and get it for a fraction of the price. So long story short, I went on Trade a Plane of all places, which, guys, I shopped Trade a Plane, Controller, barnstormers. These are generally the top three. And then of course we have our own platform called aeroavion.com if you're looking for used airplanes. Shameless plug. So I went on all these platforms and I found one on Trade a Plane. And so, as usual, reached out to the seller, and the seller writes back almost like an hour later. And I asked questions. They gave me all the details about the equipment. Given someone that's traded several airplanes over the years, I feel like I know more than average. Generally speaking, if I'm purchasing an airplane or I'm selling an airplane, this is the process. You find an airplane, you reach out to the seller, and if you're really interested in the airplane, you can make a deposit, right? You can make a refundable or non-refundable deposit. And then you get a pre-buy done, you do your due diligence, and then you set a pickup date once that's done, and then you send the rest of the money. You guys exchange paperwork. Now, the key thing to understand when you're buying or selling either an airplane or the equipment with the airplane, paperwork is important. Paperwork gives you a paper trail of service of the plane or the equipment, and also whatever record or logs you can potentially get. Long story short, I asked all these questions as I normally would with any other transaction. This fella named Joel sent me paperwork on the plane, on the equipment. This was a GTN 650. Sent me all of the raw pictures of this equipment. and then also sent me their own photo ID, right? So now, given someone that's I've bought and sold too many things digitally, you always have to be careful, right? So, rule of thumb, if you're watching this, if I'm buying something that is portable or that can be shipped, I generally prefer to use a credit card if I'm paying for it online, right? I would do a wire transfer if I meet the person, or say it's a reputable company like a Walmart, right? But if it's an individual, you're better off using a card, because if something goes wrong with the transaction, and or in my case, if you get scammed or you never receive your whatever you paid for, then you can easily file a report with your card company and or the platform, which we've done all of that. Now, unfortunately, I made a bad error with this particular transaction because I didn't pay with a card. I went against my own rule and I did a wire transfer. Now, I again, back to the story. Reached out to the seller. They sent me all the things that I requested, and then we moved on. Okay, this checks out, this checks out, this checks out, and they even sent me their name and their own airplane. So they sent me an N number for their own airplane, which had the name Joel, right? First name, last name. I've now come to find out that all of that was just BS. Fake name. Basically, they took on somebody else's identity and used their information to send all those details. And I should have known, because there was one first red flag, or several. The first one was when we got to the point where, okay, let's transact and exchange funds. Now again, I have my hard process of, okay, we'll send a deposit, we'll get the equipment, and then we'll send the rest. Now again, because this is not an airplane where you're limited by how you transport, this is something that you could ship through FedEx or whatever. The seller, it makes sense for them to want all of their money up front, because they're like, well, I could send you this item and you could decide to not pay me. Okay, I get it. So we agreed, okay, we're going to make the full payment up front, and then we agreed that they're going to send specifically through FedEx and insured. And we agreed on that. Now it was time to pay. And I said, okay, can you send me an invoice? Because this is an online transaction. I prefer to pay with an invoice and pay with a card. That way I'm protected. If something happens, if I don't get my shipment, I can always report a case. And the seller, Joel, insisted on doing a wire transfer. This was for $5,000. And of course, it makes sense because one, the amount of the money, but that was the first red flag. And to ease my worries, now this whoever did the scam, they're clearly very good. They were like, well, here's my ID card. They sent me their driver's license, and or their pilot certificate card, whatever. And again, after the fact, I'm realizing you could fake all these things, and my brain didn't even go there. So I was like, okay, I have their ID, I have their name, number, address, all of that. So of course this person is legitimate. They couldn't possibly try to screw me over. And so I sent the wire transfer. And after I sent the wire transfer, the scammer, confirmed receiving the funds and then confirmed the shipment. They sent me a tracking for the part. So again, for the most part, everything is going well. And I'm not thinking for 1 second that this could be a scam, because everything is checked out, right? We've agreed, we've signed papers. Oh, they sent me a bill of sale also, which you should always get, obviously, if you're buying an airplane or an equipment. So I have a bill of sale, I have their photo ID, I have their bank information. Now here comes the second red flag. When they sent me the bank information, it had somebody else's name, and they, in the email, they said, hey, this is my wife's bank account, you can send it here. Now, given that, again, I've done several transactions over the years, and I've had folks who may use a loved one's bank information. It would have the same last name, whatever have you. So I was like, okay, yeah, this is not a problem. So I didn't really, but that should have been my second red flag. Anyway, sent the money. They confirmed receiving it. And then they sent a shipping tracking number. And here's the third red flag. The shipment and the tracking they sent was not FedEx. It wasn't UPS. We agreed on FedEx specifically. Again, this was my way of feeling comfortable and saying, we know it's going to go through FedEx, and I know I can call FedEx and try to, if something was up. Long story, they didn't send it through FedEx. They sent it through this completely different, I've never heard of this carrier before, but the tracking number shows. And then when I used the tracking number, it just went to a page that shows that the package had been sent and is in transit. I went to them and said, hey, why didn't you send it through FedEx as we agreed? They made up some story of, yeah, this is also, now given this person also was shipping from Alaska. And I think the excuse was, yeah, Alaska, here in Alaska where I'm at, we don't really have access to FedEx. Whatever BS story they told me. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to be a jerk about it. Fine, as long as I have the tracking number. So anyway, 5 days go by, 7 days go by. Now, generally when you have tracking, should be some updates on the movement of the package. Nothing. So I check a couple of days, an entire week goes by, I check again, nothing there. There's no movement, there's no now this package is in this location, nothing. So at this point I started to get worried, and I reached out to this scammer, Joel. And at first they didn't respond. And then secondly, and then later on they responded and they said, well, this was on holiday. And they did in fact shipped the item during, it was I forgot which holiday it was, but it was a recent one. And so they said, give it some time and it should clear up. Anyway, I did give it time. Week 2 came by, nothing. And at this point, I'm really starting to get agitated. I'm like, holy cow, you know, I've sent this person $5,000 and nothing is happening. So at this point, I reached out again. And normally, again, when you call or text, you should, this time it was dead silence. So no response on calls, no response on text, no response on email. And that's when my red flag went all the way. I'm like, okay, this does not look good. And then I just started, my normal brain finally kicks in, and I started to do some research, and I did find, using the name and the address, I was able to track down a shop in Alaska, and I called that shop. And apparently the real Joel, at least a family member, picked up, and I asked him all these questions like, hey, did you by any chance send me this, blah, blah, blah. Long story. What they told me was, hey, this is not the first time somebody's using my name to scam people. And I was like, wait, what? One, it was, look, it's shocking, but of course you can't be naive, right? Aviation space is just like every other space there is. If there's a scam that could happen, people will find a way to scam. So, and that's when I realized, like, wait, I think this is a bad situation. It was after that call that I realized that, okay, you definitely, it looks like it smells like it. You've been scammed. I'm laughing about it now, but it's not funny. One, it doesn't make you feel good that something like that happened to you. But again, as I've always done over the years, is just making a public announcement. I want you guys to be really careful. Now, what's happened since then, you know, obviously reported the transaction to my bank, and I gave as much information that I have. I reported it to Trade a Plane, which, by the way, no matter how, I'm not holding Trade a Plane responsible for this, but I want you, the consumer, to know that no matter how legitimate or well-branded any platform is, understand that they're not really responsible, nor will they take responsibility for anything that goes on their platform, which is the case here. I reported it to Trade a Plane. They've probably taken the listing down, but they pretty much say, yeah, we can't really help you because that's a transaction between you and the individual. Now, you buy something on eBay, for example, eBay has some type of guarantee or protection on your items, which I would honestly advise that if you're going to buy an equipment, even if it's a $10,000, $20,000 equipment, you may be safer on an eBay platform than Trade a Plane, because at least you get some guarantee. And of course, with eBay, you can use PayPal, which if anything goes wrong, PayPal and eBay can stand in between and protect you, the buyer. So we're now at a point where I never received the item, obviously, and the person that I thought was legitimate, they're gone, and it's been investigated. So I just want to put this out there: do proper due diligence if you're buying any aviation equipment. It's hard to do 100%, right? Because also you don't want to buy a stolen item, right? If something is stolen, that's a crime. Guys, keep in mind, when theft in aviation is considered a federal crime, just so you know, right? If you steal an airplane, that's a federal crime, and you can be punished as such. So from a buyer standpoint, I need you to please be careful. When red flags that I've mentioned in this video jumps out to you, then remember to pay attention, okay? If someone asks you to why, if you look, believe it or not, most of the transactions that I've done in this space, which a lot of them has to do with buying or selling an airplane, it is done through wire transfer because it's a substantial amount of money. But except you put an eye on the thing that you're buying, and or you're buying from a reputable company or whatever, or you know the person, then you can do wire. But if you're buying, say, an avionics equipment, a radio, whatever the case may be, if you're not buying from, say, a store like we do, where we buy our parts for the airplanes and whatnot, if you're not buying from the manufacturer directly, if you're buying from a private seller, be very careful. As a matter of fact, I don't think wire transfer should be part of your option. If it's an item where they can ship, use a card. That way you're protected. So yeah, there goes my public announcement. I got scammed, and I don't want you to. So please be careful out there. It doesn't matter if they're on Trade a Plane. It doesn't matter if they're on Controller. Whoever did this, they were very good, because the photos that they sent of the equipment, of the paperwork, of their fake ID, all of it, I didn't even think for 1 second like, oh, this could be a scam. So you've been warned, okay? You have been warned. So please keep safe. I may update you on once everything has been resolved, and let you know what's happened. Again, this is being investigated currently, but I want you to be careful. Don't lose your money. Don't get scammed out there. Do your due diligence. Ask the right questions, and if possible, you can pick up an item in person. Honestly, if you spend a substantial amount of money, $5,000 is a lot of money. If you spend that kind of money, maybe you go there in person and pick up your item in person. Don't trust it to a stranger online. Okay? All right, that's my spiel. Leave your comments below, and please subscribe if this is your first time. I would definitely update you guys on what's going on. And of course, we still have to get a GTN 650 in this plane, so I'm gonna go do that. Okay, until next video, I'll talk to you soon. Peace.